Here we are. Welcome to Inside the Mind, a special project thanks to Lululemon that we're putting together during the month of November, men's mental health we're talking. And this episode is with Bradley Croker. If you've just tuned in, I hope no one's doing this, but welcome if you'd have just tuned in to the Inside the Mind series. I'm sure no one is just starting with this series. But if you do not know who Bradley Croker is, there are about 315 other weekly episodes that I record each and every Monday night with Croaks as the weekly show for the Inside Running podcast. So if you haven't heard of him before, that's who he is. He's a 217 marathon man, the co-host of the Inside Running podcast, the head coach at the Mulligan's Track Club. Is that what they're called? I think so. And this was a refreshing conversation. I've just come off air recording it and I am quite buzzing because it's a conversation that I've never had with Croaks before. We went deep into a few things and it's so strange, weird. What's another adjective I can use to describe it? Odd, I guess, that you can speak to someone every week for 6 years and never really get into these areas of their life. So I guess that's why I'm on a bit of a high after recording it, because I felt like, although we've obviously got a huge connection, Croaks and I think our connection just got a bit stronger after this conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for tuning into this series and being a listener of the Inside Running podcast. This is episode number 4 of 10. More Than a Run is something that I need to tell you about, thanks to Lululemon. That's coming up shortly. Movember's obviously happening, so if you know somebody who's got a fundraising page set up, feel free to give them a donation if you've got the means to do that. But most importantly, just start the conversations. Everyone's got mates out there. It doesn't have to be a boy-girl thing. You can start talking about your mental health, because I think these episodes have really opened my eyes to how much people are willing to talk if you do open up the passage to have these conversations. Maybe just ask them where you're at, give yourself a score out of 10 at the moment and see where that kind of takes you. I've been, so surprised with how open and vulnerable our 4 guests have been so far. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy this one with Croaks. Keep an eye out over maybe the back end of the weekend for episode number 5. What are we? The 16th of November. We've got 4 in the bag. We've got 6 to go. I reckon, just like we chase your mileage every week, I reckon we're on a good spot. We haven't banked time early like usual, but we're in a good position there to kick it home with a big negative split and get to 10 episodes by the end of November. Thanks, guys. Enjoy this chat with Croaks. All right, we are recording. This should be fun. Maybe fun. I'm so nervous to record this one because the first 3 episodes have been with people that I think I know reasonably well, but nowhere near as well as this person, because for the last 6 years, pretty much every Monday night and probably every single day over those last 6 years, we've sent a message back and forth to each other. It is Bradley Croker, the co-host of the Inside Running podcast. I would have done a little intro going into this, Croaks, but thanks for giving up some time. Thanks for, being vulnerable to talk about mental health with me for a while.
No worries. Thanks for the invite and looking forward to our therapy session.
Well, I don't want it to be a therapy session. Moose has been getting into me as well, calling me like a mental health guru. I am definitely not, and I said this to Benny Saint the other day, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. I don't even know if we should be playing around with some of these kind of questions, because it could get into a deep area that we're not qualified to discuss and stuff. But hey, it's 2 men who love running, who are sitting down talking about what their brains go through, I guess. That's the one way to put it.
No, I'm more than happy to open up. Yeah.
You said something on air a couple of weeks ago when we first started putting episodes out. I was talking about the Andy episode and the Dave McNeil episode, and you were saying, when it gets to me, I've got heaps of mental health shit going on, or something like that, you said. And then Carly even picked up on it as well. I think the next or a couple of days later at breakfast, she was like, what was Croaks talking about there? And I was just like, I've got no idea what he was talking about. But I don't know, maybe do you want to explain before we go into your score out of 10 for your own mental health?
I guess I haven't seen anybody about my mental health, but I know that I've had some issues in the past, and I've probably got more questions and more issues than I do answers and advice for people. But I've had some pretty dark days. Not so much now. I'm actually in a pretty good spot, but 2013, I had like a pretty rough sort of breakup, and so I was 33, had just bought a block of land, and then that's when the split happened. I'm like, I'm 33, I'm single, I've got this block of land, like, why do I want to do this? And then I just go through periods, and it's like I'm sort of realizing now, because I've found out recently that my family have had some mental health issues, and they've seen specialists, and they're on medication. And so it obviously does run in the family a little bit. And because for years and years and years, it's like I just go through these like rough patch where I'm like, why the hell am I feeling so down? And I almost felt guilty for it, because I'm like, compared to a lot of the population, I've got nothing to be down about. Like, I've got a decent job, I've got a good family, like I run, like my running's reasonably successful. And so I'm just like, I couldn't work it out. So yeah, like I've never seen anybody for it. But I've definitely had, like down periods. And yeah, like Viv knows when I'm depressed. So yeah, like that's a snippet, I suppose.
Yeah, because initially I was like, oh, obviously it's the hard stuff. Like, this is a guy who loves running, a guy who's like, I feel like your world revolves around your running a bit sometimes. Like, I know family's important to you, but I don't think you really like going to work that much. But when the hard stuff came up, I was like, this is going to like break this guy. Like, this is like, I was like thinking of Moose. I'm like, I don't know, like he could be down in the dumps for years. I'm like, what are we going to do if this is the situation? Whereas your positivity on the weekly show, and just what seems like in like day-to-day life, is it hasn't been impacted at all. So like from the outside looking in, I would say I was expecting you to be down, and that would have been a massive, dark time for you. But from the outside looking in, it's like, oh no, you've smashed this like period.
Yeah, and I was saying to you off air that you would have thought that, with the heart stuff, that my mental health would have been the worst this year, but it's actually been probably the best. And you mentioned before that like running has been pretty much my world for like 20 plus years, and I almost think that although running is good for mental health, I think in a way running has been bad for my own mental health, because for a long time I have just solely focused on running. Yes, I've gone and got a degree. I've had jobs, but it's like every day I've woken up and it's like running. And part of me's felt guilty as well, because it's like, I'm not even that fucking good to basically
pretty good.
No, but like, you know what I mean? Like, to go all in on something, I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like, I'm potentially missing out on a whole heap of experiences because I'm running so much. And the reason why I think my mental health is so good this year is I'm the most balanced I've probably ever been, because like I wasn't competing as much anyway in the lead up to the heart stuff. The heart stuff meant that I placed a lot more effort into the coaching and the development of the Canberra group, which that is the highlight of my week now, is rocking up twice a week, seeing that group, running with them. Not running as much means that I'm going to work and I'm probably a little bit more present because I'm not as tired, and then family as well. So like the kids are now at an age where like Lily's doing things for the first time, and you can see like just the joy in her face. Like, went to the coast a few weeks ago and it was the first time she like swam out past the waves and like was diving under the waves. And we went for a big bike ride yesterday and I'm just riding next to her, and it's like, this is better than any PB. And so it's the first time I've had a good balance, which I haven't had for 20 plus years.
When you were running seriously though, did you think it would, like that stuff would be better than a PB, or were you, because guilty as a parent who's trying to train hard and work hard, I sometimes don't have the energy for that shit. I'm like, we got to go for a walk around the block with the kids on the bike. I'm like, I'm sitting on a 1% battery here and I want to kind of save energy for the next day. And I'm like, and then sometimes I'm in a shitty mood, and then same thing, I'd then feel guilty. And if you compared going for, it sounds bad, but like seeing the joy of my kid riding a bike compared to running a PB, what you're now saying, I'll be like, I can't see it at this stage, because I know the euphoria you get when you run a PB. Yeah,
it does change, but also I think the fact that I haven't been running as much allows me to actually spend more time doing that stuff with Lily. Whereas some of the afternoons when I was not able to run at all, my only option was to go for a walk. So I would take her down to the pond, and she would ride her bike and I would walk next to her. Whereas if I was running 160k a week, it's like, oh, I'd be going out for a second run. I wouldn't be walking while she's riding her bike. So yeah, I think balance is the one thing that I haven't had for a very long time. That combined with, obviously, there's some sort of genetic component with my mental health. But yeah, and also I think the longer I've sort of, I guess, dealt with it, I'm better now at identifying when I'm having a rough patch, and I can just go, oh, hey, yeah, that's just the mental health thing. I either have the option of like spiraling out of control by just having more negative thoughts, whereas now I can actually flip things around a little bit and look at more the positives as opposed to like negatives. Because when I was first, experiencing all these down periods, I would just find the negatives in everything. Whereas now I feel like I can sort of flip it around and look at positives. So for example, with the heart stuff, like, when I haven't had a bad mental health period during the heart stuff, but it previously, if I was having a bad patch and the heart stuff came on, it would have been like just negative, negative, negative. Whereas this time around, it's like, oh, hey, well, I get to put more effort into the coaching side of things. 2, I'm being looked after now by the best people in the country or the world in terms of like looking after my health. So yeah, I've just been able to flip things a little bit more than what I used to be able to do.
Yeah, take me back to when you first noticed it with that breakup. You just bought the block of land. Do you think there was a bit of that like society's expectation is like you shouldn't be single at 33? Like, what's going to happen to your next 3 or 4 years of your life? And like, are you going to be, the person that people laugh at, oh, look at this guy, still single at 33, never found his match kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit. And also at that time, career was never like, I graduated with a teaching degree in 2002. And what are we, 2023? I've been a full-time teacher for 6 months in that whole time. What's that, 21 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, 21 years of having a teaching degree, and I've been a full-time teacher for 6 months. So, yeah, I've never been career-driven. But, yeah, there was that sort of like, what am I doing with my life? And when you have these rough patches, you think, like, what the fuck's the purpose of life? I don't even know what the purpose of life is. What should I be doing? Should I be going out and just doing what makes me happy? Should I be looking after other people? And I often struggle with that, is like, what is my purpose? Whereas in the last year or two, with the family I've got, with the coaching group I've got, I'm like, I know what my purpose is now. It's not me being selfish running 160k a week. It's making sure my kids have a good life. It's, making sure that the people that I now coach don't make the same mistakes that I made, and that sort of thing. So I think purpose is a massive component of it as well.
But 2 years, or pre-hard stuff, I would say that your purpose was to be the best runner Brad Croker can be. And I've looked at you in the past and being like, saying to Carly, I'm like, shit, I wish I could train at the same time that Croaks trains and stuff like that. Like almost being jealous. I'm like, this guy's got a pretty good opportunity to set this up kind of thing here.
Yeah, and look, when running's going well, that's all fine. But when you've got nothing as a backup plan and you get an injury or your running's not going so well, then you're screwed.
Yeah, all the eggs in one basket kind of thing.
Yeah, and I used to always think how cool it would be to be a full-time pro athlete. But if you've got like nothing else to fall back on, as I said, it's awesome. When I had a job after I left Swimming Australia, it was a public service job, and I used to rock up there. Actually, it was lead up to our Berlin race, and I was training pretty well at the start of 2017, and but it was one of those jobs where I rocked up, went home at the end of the day, and I would be driving home. I'm like, I did nothing today. Like, it would not have mattered if I was in the office. And that was all fine. And while I was running well, I'm like, this is the best job in the world, because I can just put all my eggs in the one basket, run 170k a week. My sessions are going well. My races are going well. And then, I hurt my Achilles in the lead up to Berlin. And I'm obviously in a pretty shitty period. And then they asked me to, because I was on a contract at that job, and they asked me to like apply for the position for when I got back from Berlin. And I did apply for it initially. And then the week before we left for Berlin, I said, look, take my name off the interview list, because I'm not coming back. Because I knew if I came back, I'd just be in a really bad sort of mental headspace, because it's just a dead end job. So that's when I went back to back to teaching when I got back from Berlin.
Yeah, so purpose is obviously huge for you. And I think it's the first time we've heard the word purpose in these episodes for your mental health. You've got to have purpose. And it's like a helping other people purpose, not a selfish kind of purpose thing where everything's, centered around a singular goal or objective.
Yeah, and balance, I think. And that's the one thing, like my personality is I'm very all or nothing with things, and it's very hard to have a balance when you're like that. And I sometimes feel like, and I'm not sure if it's the chicken or the egg, whether for me, like my personality sort of lends itself to distance running, where you're that type A personality where you're like a bit of a perfectionist. And so, which at the end of the day, it's like, you can't achieve perfection. And so I feel like running is sometimes, as I said before, it's like being bad for my mental health in a way.
Chasing that thing that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Mate, we've started heavy. What's your score out of 10 today then?
I'm about an 8, I reckon. It's been good. As I said, work's quite enjoyable at the moment because I've got that, I'm not tired from training. I feel like I can be a bit present because I've got those two days that I don't run a week. Family life's good. I'm running enough that I feel pretty good when I'm running, and I feel like the fitness is building. So I'd say about an 8.
Yeah. When you're not an 8, like you said before, like Viv will, pick it and you'll pick it. You said you looked at kind of like a pros and cons list, like just write down all the positive. Like, is it a physical thing where you'll write down all the good things in your life to kind of direct your attention there, or just like you sit and think, or how do you get yourself out of it when you're not an 8? Yeah,
so I generally just sit down and think about, all right, well, and because I've got better at identifying when I'm having a rough patch, I'm like, okay, I can go one of two ways. I can either just get more negative about everything and just go into a bit of a downward spiral, or I can actually look at the positives. And I have a lot of positives to look back on, like my life's bloody great. And so it's more of just knowing that, all right, there's obviously something going on in my brain that's sort of altering my perception of things a little bit. And so I need to just stop that and go, hang on a second. Hey, I've got this coming up, got 2 awesome kids,
healthy
you don't
kids.
need, you don't need to be so down because there's there's a heap of people out there that are doing a lot harder than what you are. Yeah.
So then what triggers those thoughts, those negative thoughts, and that spiral away from the 8 out of 10? Have you identified those things to be like, hey, I need to stay away from that?
No, and that's potentially why I need to go and see someone, because that could just be a genetic, almost like a sickness in a way, where it's like I can't control the sickness; it just comes on, and it took a long while for me to think or realize why the hell am I so down? But then it makes sense when I hear about my brother and my mum and that sort of thing being on medication for mental health. And I was chatting to my brother today, and I asked him about it, and he said, I get a lot of sort of anxiety as well, and the medication helps his anxiety. And I think I do as well. Although I've been doing podcasts for 6 years, I'm very much an introvert, and I get I would love to do more interviews, but I get so nervous. I get so nervous for any interview I do with an athlete or a coach or whatever, and to the point that I have to spend so much time in the lead up preparing everything to overcome that anxiety, so that I have a plan. I have all my notes ready to go, so that I'm never sort of dealing with that anxiety. And it's I wish it was.
People
I wish it
would be
wasn't
shocked
that
to hear
way.
that. Knowing there's a lot of people who have listened to finished products with some of the interviews you would have put out over the last 6 years, and they'd be shocked to hear that that doesn't come naturally to you, but your preparation is what gets those results.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, it's that perfectionist. It's like if I go to bed with something on my mind, it just goes around in my head, and it's often just keeps me up.
You have trouble sleeping sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, especially if I've had something going on in my head, and it can be the most minor thing, but it's just keeps going around in my head. So
I'm the same. I put in headphones every night. And I'll put a sleep timer for 15 minutes or half an hour, depending how tired I am, just of some footy podcast or some conversation or basketball, whatever it is, something I don't really care that much about, but I'm happy to have somebody else in my ears, so it's not my own voice going around in my head. And then my first, so I'm like shocking at the end of the day and the start of the day. Like I've got a rule now where I'm not allowed to pay attention to any thoughts in my head for the first 5 minutes because they are always so negative. So like when my alarm goes off, I'm like, poor me, why am I getting up so early? I've got to go to school today. I've got to do this next week. Fucking da-da-da. Just get everything just like says, right, we're just going to kill your brain with all this stuff. Whereas now I just go, nah, not paying any attention. I'll start thinking properly in 5 minutes. I would have had a coffee by then. I would have like hobbled out of bed and I'm like, because I know that shit first in the morning is like a killer. Like I don't know if it's a normal thing for people, but for some reason my brain just goes to everything that could potentially be negative in my life. Like the other day I would have woken up and been like, oh, I've got to interview Benny St. Lawrence today. What a chore that's going to be. And I'm like, fuck, it's my hero. Like what an opportunity is to do that.
Do you get nervous? Do you get nervous, really nervous before that sort of stuff or not? Because you don't seem to.
No, I don't know. I get nervous I see it now as like it's an opportunity and a privilege to do it. Like not so much it's a chore. Like we are in a very it's like I grew up. Well, I still live in a town where I rarely see other people who run. I grew up as the biggest fanboy of Australian distance running, so I kind of flip it as like this is nothing to get nervous for. This is an opportunity. Like me and you got to interview Craig Mottram. Yeah. Like I had posters of Craig Mottram in my wall, so I'm like, yes, I'm nervous about it, but it's more the excitement of it now. And it's like, of course, I get more nervous about the live stuff we do, but at the same time, I always dumb it down to like, we're talking about something that we know so much about. Like it's almost, I almost think the interviewee is almost the person who has the pressure on them as well.
Yeah,
because
true.
I think our audience know what they're going to get with you and me. And we're in charge of, I often say to people, like in an interview, we're the 20%, but the guest makes up the 80. So like there's only so much we can stuff up with the 20%. And you can hear it on other running podcasts when they do stuff it up and just ask stupid questions. And it almost doesn't get that guest the opportunity to do the 80%. But I think because we've done it so much now, I'm comfortable with doing it. So, but back to you.
The example with the anxiety. So I always love how when you do your intros, like every Monday night, we'll get on, we'll chat for a couple of minutes before you press record. And they're like, all right, boys, going to press record. And then you just go, welcome to episode, blah, blah, blah. We got this, we got this, we got this. And then anytime I have to host it, I literally write out the intro because I'm like, I just want to get things started smoothly. And the best way for me to do that with, reducing my anxiety levels is to have it scripted. And so I know it comes across scripted when I'm introducing the show if I'm hosting, but it's the way that I can deal with. Because once the show's up and running, then it's fine. It's just that taking off the aeroplane, getting it off the ground kind of thing. Yeah. But mine is very much like, and now listeners will know this when they listen every week, it's fake it till you make it. Like go in with hard energy, and that's why I fucked up that Grand Prix the other day. Because it's like I didn't do any research and I'm scanning through what the notes are that you'd written. I hadn't even written it. And then it's like when you just run out, you just start listing off Moose's 2:14 marathon PB and how are you, Moose? And you're just like, bam, where the airways go to somebody else and it's their time to contribute. But when you're talking about anxiety as well around racing, were you, I didn't really know you at all when you were a track guy, but I compare, and I do distinctively remember me and you walking to the start line of Berlin in 2017 and you telling me I shouldn't be I should be taking this more serious. Like I was joking around and fucking around and you're like, Brady, you're about to run a marathon, concentrate and be serious. And I'm like, I'm kind of similar. I kind of fake it till I make it as well, pre-races and when I'm racing, and that's why sometimes I do stupid things in races. But were you higher strung when you used to run track compared to coming to the roads and the longer stuff? No, I probably got more higher strung later on in my running, and maybe that's when all of this mental health was a lot worse, I reckon, from probably post 30, and so. And I think as well with the track running, you're racing so often because you're doing 1,500 every week there for, in a period of time and so you sort of just get used to racing. And a bit what Dave McNeil said in his, it's like, well, you can train for that, anxiety in races by just going and racing more. And so I did a lot of that when I was younger, but then once I sort of got into my 30s, it was, as once you sort of move up onto the roads, you don't race quite as often. Unless, if you're doing XCR and that sort of stuff, you're racing regularly. But when you're racing a couple of marathons a year, Plus, I feel like then once this mental health stuff started to take hold with my like personality of being a perfectionist, I only really wanted to run when I knew that it was going to be a good result. So I wouldn't sort of, get into a negative headspace. But for me as well, I think anxiety was in a way a good thing for racing, because if I didn't feel nervous for it, then I wouldn't have had extra adrenaline pumping through my body. And I feel like that extra adrenaline when you're racing is worth a few seconds a K compared to training. That's what I say to people. It's like if you're going out and doing a 30-minute tempo just on a normal Friday morning and you're running 3:30s, like that same effort in a race is going to be 3:25s, if not faster, because of all the extra adrenaline plus people around you. The worst I ever had it, though, was Canberra Marathon 2017. So I remember you interviewed me for your Tell Me Your Tales.
Yeah.
And I hadn't run a marathon. So, first marathon was 2013. I then didn't run one till 2016, and that was Melbourne, which was sort of a half-ass just to get the Berlin qualifier, which was 2:45.
Did you run with Jess that day?
No, it was Virginia Maloney, I think, won.
Okay.
I think she won it that day. And so I remember
was
I
Jess
ran with
second or third? Was Jess there?
No, I don't think Jess ran.
Jess.
No, because that was Josh Harris paced her the year that she did it, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was 2016. They nearly caught me.
Yeah, so this was the year after that. And so I ran with the lead women's pack for the first half. And I think actually Ash Watson was in that pack as well. But my goal for the day was, because I didn't have an awesome prep, was just to run the 2:45 and obviously kicked it down and ran like 2:30. So April 2000.
My goal was to run 2:45 and I kicked it down and took 15 minutes off that.
Yeah, well, I just went out with the lead women, which they were probably running mid 2:30s or something like that. But that was my goal for the day. But then knowing that we'd locked in Berlin for the end of 2017, I wanted to get one serious marathon in the lead up to that. So I trained for Canberra and I was going pretty well. And I had the worst pre-race anxiety for days in advance. Like I remember I didn't sleep. I reckon I didn't sleep maybe Tuesday night or Wednesday night. And I was going to work and I was just like a zombie. And I actually went to the doctor and I said, look, I got the Canberra Marathon this weekend. It's pretty important for me. And I haven't slept for the last 2 nights. If I don't sleep like tonight, 3 nights in a row, like my race is cooked. So he actually prescribed me some temazepam. And so I had basically sleeping tablets for maybe the Thursday night and the Friday night to get some sleep. And then occasionally I would just use those for flights over to Europe and stuff like that. But that was the worst pre-race anxiety I've ever had, to the point that I lost like a couple of nights of sleep and did have to go and get some medication. But on the flip side, this year at Sydney 10, I had no anxiety whatsoever, to the point that a few K into the race, I'm like, why am I even here? So I think anxiety in a way is needed on race day, or I'm not sure if anxiety is the right word. Like,
didn't Sydney 10 the year before though as well? You were on sleeping tablets to get to sleep?
They're probably just leftover ones. Yeah, I did take. Yeah, I actually did take one that year.
You said it was really noisy, like your hotel and stuff.
Yeah, so they were just leftover temazepam, probably out of date.
Mate, you can't go doing that.
Don't have any left.
Do you get weird dreams when you take that?
Nah, you just wake up feeling a bit sort of foggy, I suppose, not being able to sort of just focus too well.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Spain last year, I got some. And I remember taking like half a tablet maybe the week before just to like test it. And my dreams are like I must have been in deep REM or whatever. But I had the like weirdest dreams. And then I decided not to take them on the plane, because I'm like, I'm going to stay away from that. That didn't work well with my brain. But yeah, just waking up foggy. So same thing though, you don't know what the trigger was? Like why for that Canberra one?
I don't know. I guess I just build it up. Like obviously I just put so much pressure on myself for that one, where because I hadn't run a marathon, a serious one, since 2013, this is 2017, and I don't know, I guess I just had really high expectations of myself and was just super, super nervous. Probably just, like...
Do you reckon that Tell Me Your Tales interview got you?
Maybe.
Put extra pressure on you.
I just cared too much. To the point, though, like the first half of that race was absolutely terrible. Like I felt crap. And then the second half was awesome.
Did you come second?
third. But I think I read Matt Cox and one of the African guys that was living out here at the time. Oh, Samuel.
Yeah.
Walder. Maybe it was him.
Used to run for South Melbourne back in the day, the red and white singlet.
Yeah, but I think I ran like 70 minutes for the second half. But felt good in that second half, but garbage in the first half.
The expectations would all be internally.
Oh, it's all internal.
Yeah, no one's putting expectations on you to go dominate Canberra Marathon.
No, and like I guess it was so long ago now that I can't even remember why I put so much pressure on myself. I don't know. And I guess that's also the problem when you put all your eggs in one basket. It's like, what was I doing 2017? I was work-wise. I started 2017, would have been that dead end public service job that I had. So I was in that, and so got nothing else. Like I didn't have a family then. Wasn't coaching anybody. It was running, and as I said before, at times I'm thinking to myself, like, why am I even running as much as I am? Like, I'm not that, in the scheme of things, I'm not that good. Like, I'm not going to the Olympics, but the problem was I'd been doing it for 20 years. I didn't know anything else. Like, whereas I was always jealous of people that maybe had a bit more balance or would, still run well, but be doing this or that and the other, which is probably like a lot of people that I coach. They're not all in on their running, and so they have that balance. And so if one part of their life is not going well, they've got all of these other outlets, which I didn't have at the time. That being said, like looking back at it, like I'm sort of giving running a bit of a bad rap here, like blaming running for causing poor mental health. But then I look what running has provided me, and it's like, I've managed, because of my running, cool job at the AIS, this podcast has been amazing in terms of the flexibility it's allowed for me to spend time at home with Lily. The coaching's come off the back of that. So I'm obviously very grateful for what running's done. And to a point, I don't regret going all in on it, but I think there was times when it did hurt my health by not having anything outside of running.
Yeah. To go back, there's heaps of different rabbit holes we can jump down here, but you mentioned your family before, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but that's, since we've asked you to do this, this show, that's been something you've opened up the doors of communication about, that hasn't happened before. This is all new information to you as a 40-year-old?
No, and it was weird because I knew this interview was coming, and I thought to myself, how much am I going to open up here? Because I feel like it's a cop-out if I don't. It's November, it's Men's Health Month. I could have easily just got on here and just played my mental health's always been pretty good. I get a few nerves before races, but I'm like, no, I want to do this properly. And for me to do that, it's like, well, I actually wanted to confirm that there was some mental health issues within my family, because everything I'd heard was from one other brother, or mum may have said, oh yeah, this brother's on medication, and then dad might have mentioned that mum's on medication, but mum hasn't told me that she's on medication, and my brother hasn't told me he's on medication. And so I wanted to find out this afternoon from my brother, and it was actually a really good chat. I messaged him, and then he gave me a call, and he's actually still on medication. He's been on it for years. And so, which part of me is maybe I should have gone and seen somebody, or I sort of wonder now, if I was taking some medication, how differently I would feel about things. Would it actually improve my running? Would I want to race more often because I wouldn't place as much pressure on myself? I don't know. But I'm also conscious of, why put medication into my body if I can sort of manage it in other ways, which I feel like I've slowly developed the tools just through past experiences to be able to do that. Plus, life situation has changed with family to make more balance and just make me generally happier with life in general.
Yeah, and I don't have absolutely any qualifications to be talking about this, but I still will. But if the episodes are less and less frequent now, you'd think that's also got to help. But isn't it great that now what may have been like a taboo topic for you and your family members is like, oh no, I just messaged my brother. We had a phone call about it. It's like, and that's, I guess, a bit of the goal of this whole November project, to be like, we're just talking shit about it. Like, and then you choose what you're going to do next. Like, it's, just opening the door.
Yeah, well, even not, you see it on TV. I know here in Canberra, you know, the Canberra Raiders are on that ad where it's, you know, it's not weak to speak and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's commonplace for people to talk about it now, which I guarantee, like 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have spoken like this. Like, but it's
2 years ago.
It's acceptable to do it now.
Is there anyone else you talk to about this other than like Viv, or she's kind of your rock with this?
No, Viv's the only one that, Viv's like, so up until tonight, talking to you, Viv's the only one, like Mum and Dad have known, because Viv will often could sort of communicate with them about whether I'm in a good period or a bad period. So so Mum and Dad know, plus the relationship that I've had with my parents in the past. It's like, because I got sent to boarding school when I was 12, and so, you know, we're not the closest family. And so often when I was going through these sort of rough patches, I'd often become quite sort of closed off to everyone sort of thing. And so Mum and Dad obviously knew something was going on, plus then knowing that, you know, Mum had her issues and one of my brothers had his issues, it sort of made sense that I would probably have some issues as well. So.
And do you use the language like, hey, my mental health's not great at the moment? Or like, is it just like I know firsthand, I'll say to Carly, hey, I'm in a pretty shit mood. Like, this is like, or I'll use that like analogy of like my phone. Like, you know, I'm on about 5% here. Like, I can't dig much deeper. Like, it's been this happened, that happened, whatever. I got shook by this, whatever it was. But I've never really said like, hey, my mental health is pretty shit right now. It's often like, I'm in a shit mood. I'm struggling with work. I'm overstressed. I've got too many plates spinning, as Benny St. Lawrence would say. Like, or how do you kind of explain it?
Probably like I'm feeling down, or I'm in a funk.
Okay.
Like probably in a funk's probably a good or a common phrase that I would use. Plus Viv can just sort of pick up on it as well. Like she knows when I'm not myself, but she also knows like how to like react when I'm like that as well. So like, massive shout out to Viv, because I'd imagine that there'd be some partners out there that wouldn't be as accepting and would just, you know, I don't care how you're feeling, you're acting like a prick. Like, so she's very much knows, I guess, the right things to say and the buttons to push to just, you know, ease me out of it, I suppose.
Yeah. Or why are you in a funk today? Like, you haven't looked after the kids, or you haven't gone to work, or like, you know what I mean? It's just like, then you start going, shit, why am I in this down in the dumps? But
it gets back to that whole thing. And then when you get told that, you're like, like, why am I down? Because I shouldn't be. There's friggin' so many other people out there in the world.
It's the feeling though, isn't it?
I know, but for a long time I felt so guilty of feeling down because I've got nothing to feel down about compared to so many other people. But you just can't control it at times.
Yeah. Oh, I've done, because I love that, like the resilience project things, you know, the gratitude and like, you know, what to focus on these positives and stuff. And I've done it so many times. Well, it's not so many times. Like, this is minimal for me, but it's been times where I'm just like, what do you do? Like, you're listing off 10 amazing things that are great in your life. Like, and you're just like, why are you feeling this way? And then, you're right. Then it starts that cycle of being like, then you're down because you're feeling down when you should be feeling happy because you've got this list of 10 things you've just written out. And you're just like, it's, I don't know what the answer is there. Do you just keep listing more things, or do you start seeing a GP?
I know you're the host of the show, Brady, but I've got a question for you in terms of, because you've gone very much all in on running as well. Like, you know, you basically work, got family. Yes, you maybe came to running a little bit later than me, but do you ever do you ever think you see other friends and they've got various hobbies and you've basically got, you know, largely the running hobby. Yep. Do you ever, and at the end of the day, like, yes, you might run like 2:16, 2:15 for the marathon, 2:14, but it's not significantly going to change your life compared to the 2:19, but you're potentially missing out on experiencing all these other parts of life. And, you know, do you ever think about that?
I try not to do the like comparison thing, because I've got because I think there'd be mates going, oh, this Brady gets to make money off just talking to his mates about running every Monday night, or like Brady gets to go to Tokyo with Lululemon, or Brady gets to, you know, he gets all this free shit delivered to my house that I've got to review every couple of weeks and stuff like that. So I could see me going, oh, this is unfair that I don't get to go on that footy trip or whatever it is. But then I try not, I think comparing ourselves is really bad. And no, I don't really, because I think what we've got from running, and even, if I get a 216, I'd be stoked. 219, I'd be content. The experiences we've got from the one sole sport, and that could be an experience like seeing someone, you know, I've got a guy coach running the state 5K champs in 25 minutes time. So it's like that's a good experience as a coach. And I've been at the state 5K champs myself, and being on the sidelines, you know, the people who got to interview has been amazing. Like I've interviewed Bernard Legat.
Yeah.
Live, like I sit on a stage at Gold Coast and interview next to Moose and interview Jess Stenson in front of 500 people. And we get paid to do it. Like so all those kind of things now, I'm just like, I don't like the comparison game. And if my mind goes there, I think I've missed out on life experiences in another area of my life. I'll look at this massive list of cool shit. You know, Carly and I travelled to Berlin, and we ran Berlin Marathon together. And I went to Spain last year. Like I could list off 50 things that, not that I'm trying to shut my other mates down who have got hobbies and ride motorbikes or go wakeboarding or whatever it is. Even I got there was a period there where I used to feel so sorry for myself that I couldn't go out and get hammered every Saturday night because I had to do a long run. Because I'm just like I would drive past the Border Inn, which is this pub down on the corner, and I'd be like, fuck, I'd do anything to be sitting out there sinking beers with the boys. And then, but the next morning you do your long run and you come off it and you're like, look at this, I've just hit 32k at 410 average. It's closed off 160k a week, because I think that's my purpose. Working on, and even if I never run that good marathon, I think it's been good for me to work on trying to run a good marathon instead of, because you know what it's like when you wake up hungover and stuff anyway. Like it might be a good 3 or 4 hours, but you don't get that same sense of, I've gone sideways around your question a bit there, but
no, I get it. I think I think that was a really good answer. And that's
social media shit.
Yeah, and like even the connections you make, like we're pretty lucky. I reckon we could almost travel anywhere in the world and would be able to hit up somebody to say, hey, let's go for a run, or do you know where to run around here? And and also like the fact, like when Andy was on about, it took him a long time to, like, he wanted to not just be the runner, you know, he wanted to have, you know, he's a teacher and he's a runner, but then he's got now comfortable with just being known as, hey, I'm Andy the runner, which I've yo-yoed with that for 20 years.
Same.
It's like at times I'm like, you know what, I'm happy that I've gone all in on running because it's led to these jobs, these opportunities, you know, these shoes being delivered at the door. You know, being able to interview these, you know, athletes, even though I'm sort of nervous and have anxiety when I do it, but it's still, you know, pressure's a privilege. But then there's other times when I'm like, oh, being just the runner is no good, like, because I know I need something else to, you know, ground me, or just to, you know, when running's not going so well, just to have that other outlet.
Yeah, and that's like
I seem to have now.
We've almost got that subcategory as runner now. It's like you're a running coach, you're a running broadcaster, you're a runner, your actual self. You're like Moose is a running influencer, so he's got that kind of bow in his whatever that saying is as well. But I think it's accepting that. I was always the same as well, because I was always shit scared of getting injured, thinking that everything else in my life would fall apart because I couldn't run. Because I would think I can only be a teacher the way I teach because I go for a run in the morning. Or I can only be the dad I can be because I go for a run. Like, my kids, like, see me get home from a run every morning. Like, I come home and they're sitting in their high chair and they're seated at the table eating breakfast. Like, they only know me. Like, if they get up before I go for a run, which is rare, but they only know me as the dad who walks in when they're halfway through breakfast. So I always wonder how much, because my identity is so tied with doing my life off the back of a run in the morning, if I would be then different personality. Which is strange. Next one, what does your brain do when you do different types of like runs? Do you notice difference when you come off like workouts or long runs or hill reps or just an easy recovery run?
So for me, the easy recovery runs, I don't get a lot
thresholds
from. I don't get, maybe that's why I've always run fast.
Maybe chasing something.
It's because I don't get much from like, yeah, like if I know that I'm going out for a really slow recovery run, I'm just like, ugh, like why do this? Maybe I'm happy just to sit on the couch instead. Whereas I get myself up for a long run. One, because I know how important it is to the overall sort of weekly structure of improving as a distance runner. But I always feel like there's this sense of achievement as well when you look back and you get to 10 o'clock Sunday morning and you've run 30K and then obviously, yeah, the endorphins from an interval session, I enjoy that as well. Like, it's funny, I ask a lot of people at training whether they like cool downs, and so many people like say they hate the cool down. Like they just want to go home. Whereas for me, it's like I hate the warm up because, well, one, I don't have the endorphins pumping through the body yet. I've got maybe a bit of anxiety about what's coming. Yeah. But then you finish that session and then you have that sort of 5 minutes where you change your shoes and you're like, oh, that's done. I feel amazing. Now let's go and have a chat for the next 20 minutes while we cool down. And I love it. Like I feel like I could just go and run for another hour in a cool down because, yeah, you got the endorphins, the session's done. So long runs and sessions are where I get the most sort of, enjoyment or buzz from, I suppose.
Do you get a bit of a strut on afterwards? Like I've been at the supermarket, like post a track workout on my grass track, like strutting around there, just being like, anyone wants to come at me, I'm happy to go. Like I get real up and about post track workouts. I think I can run through a wall.
Especially if the session's gone well, you're up and about, and that's why.
If it's gone poor, you don't do a cool down.
Yeah, and that's why I think for a long time, like you boys have hassled me about not racing so much, but I almost get the same endorphin hit and same endorphin hit from just a good training session or a good run as I do from a good race. But I have less sort of anxiety and put less pressure on myself in those training sessions than I do for races. Yeah,
good. What other have you feel like you got strategies in place, but have you used, I know you said you haven't seen a doctor and it might be something you do, but like have you got any other resources that you use? Or any other just routines? Like I said before, like I've got this first 5 minute rule. Like have you got any like incidental things like that you're just like, this is what I have to do in my day to look after my mental health?
Yeah, so things that I like to do if I know that I'm in sort of a bit of a downward spiral is almost just get out of my current sort of reality. So get out of my own head, I suppose. And so the two ways that I do that is like music. Like I love my music. Maybe not the same music that you love, but like
Vicar and Linda.
Yeah, well, funny you say that, Brady. That song, When Will You Fall For Me? I do remember that song from years ago, and it got me. It's on my playlist. It's on my Spotify playlist now.
Oh, you put it on there?
Yeah, it's been on repeat. I get hooked. Yeah, I think it comes back to my personality that when I get onto a song, it's on just repeat. Yeah, so I do like that song. So listening to music that sort of I enjoy that then takes my mind off feeling shit.
Just on the music thing, I know it's a serious conversation and we're getting like off topic, but then do you flog the song so hard that then like 3 weeks later you're like, I'm sick of that song, I'm not listening to that for the rest of the year?
No, I flog it for a while, might even just be a week, and then I don't listen to it. But then if I hear it a couple of months later, I still enjoy it. So I don't completely kill it.
Yeah, okay. I'm a complete killer. FYI. Yeah, I go hard on it and then just stop listening.
So music and the other one is just like TV shows, I suppose. Like jumping on a bit of Netflix and just getting into a series where I almost feel like I'm in that world as opposed to what's actually happening. And it's not sustainable, I suppose, to just do that sort of stuff, especially if you're in a really bad spot. But it does help in the short term just to sort of flick the switch and maybe reset things a little bit.
Yep. So that's to reset things. But what do you do to avoid like getting in there? Like are there things that you need? So it's like, do you need to be outdoors for an hour a day, do some kind of exercise, or do you need do you know what I mean? Like if you have X amount of hours sleep or eat certain foods or drink a litre of water or whatever it is.
Yeah, so I can't answer that because when I get into let's call it depression.
Yeah, you don't know what puts you into it.
No, it's. I guess it's because from what I understand, with some forms of depression, it's like a bit of an illness where it's just the chemicals in your brain. It's just make you feel a certain way and make you start thinking a particular way.
Yeah.
So I don't know what stops that from coming on, other than I think just being in a happy place, and that happy place means being around my kids, being around the group that I coach. So like, every Tuesday afternoon when I'm driving out to training, every Friday morning when I'm driving to training, it's like I can't wait to get there and just see everyone. Which,
David Neal spoke about that as well, like the people around you are so important.
Yeah. Like I've never been a morning person, but since starting up these group sessions, like I'm out of bed at well before 6 because we meet at 6:30, and like I've never done that in 20 years of running, but I'm sort of really looking forward to getting up every Friday morning now. So I think whenever I'm happy and I've got a few, or put it this way, I think since my kids have grown up, like that's been a massive part. Like when I first became a dad, I really struggled. That was probably another one of my rough patches. So Lily was born 2018. I was gearing up for Valencia Marathon and was like I was training significantly better than I was in the lead up to Lake Biwa. And so I thought, here we go. Like I only need to take off like 80 seconds for a World Champs qualifier. And then Lily was born. I remember I did this long run the week. So Lily was born on a Wednesday. I did a long run on the Sunday, and it was like, I think I ran like a 15:20 5K. I remember Moose would be like, well, why the fuck are we running 15:20 at the end of a long run? But like I'd run an hour 45 at, I don't know, 3:45s, 3:50s through Mulligans, and then a 15:30 around Yerrabee Pond. And I'm like, I wasn't doing anything like that before Lake Biwa. And then Lily was born, hurt my calf in Melbourne. And then for the next 2 years, like I was just down because I think having Lily and just the carrying of babies, that's what was really affecting my back and hips. And so even though my calf healed, just being a dad with a newborn really affected my body, which at that point, yes, I loved being a dad, but there wasn't a lot that I could, I couldn't take her out for swim in the ocean. I couldn't go for a bike ride with her. So it wasn't until she actually grew up that I could interact with her a bit more, that being a dad, like help my mental health. Whereas when she was a newborn and the running wasn't going well, that was a tough period as well.
Hey Croaks, it's been a good chat. I've really enjoyed this. Are there any questions you wish I asked you about your mental health?
No, I think we've gone down a fair few rabbit holes.
Back to the chemicals in the brain, and they'd be like, if there's any psychologists listening here, please feel free to write in and give us some education on this. Do those imbalances, you were saying like those imbalances happen genetically just with like our makeup?
I think,
and then other people it can be like triggered because of their life situations and stuff.
Potentially, yeah. And look, and I'm sure for even me, there was things that probably triggered it, but I probably couldn't tell you what those triggers were, other than probably not having anything in my life other than running, and Viv at the time. So like, whatever I have a bit more in my life, it's probably less likely to trigger those experiences. Or that feeling. But it's funny now, I think back when I was a track runner in Sydney, one of my coaches gave me the nickname the roller coaster, which is because it's like I'd either be like training and racing really well, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, fuck this, I'm done with this sport, and then it's like, okay, a couple of weeks later I'm like, I'm back, like I'm motivated again, and like at the time I didn't really, I thought, fair enough, that's not a bad nickname, but there's probably something behind that mental health that they could obviously identify by giving me the nickname the roller coaster.
Yeah, but then like you're pretty resilient at like sticking in there.
Yeah.
Like now,
Yeah, because I'm bloody stubborn, and my personality is, it's like I'm all or nothing, and then at some point I got to the point where I don't know anything else. Like it's too hard for me to go and start playing footy now or take up a new hobby, so I'm just going to keep plodding along, and like, to be honest, like, I was actually pretty proud of me continuing through like 2019, 2020, because like I was I was way fitter than I am now, but I was moving so poorly and every run felt shit house. And I did it for a couple of years and was running big miles as well. So I was pretty proud to actually stick at it for that long.
That's great, mate. I've had fun. I've spent 6 years asking you how your physical health is. I know more about your splits and your K average per week and all those things than anyone else on this planet. But thank you for talking about mental health with me and being vulnerable for the last 55 minutes.
No worries, mate. Feel free to send me your invoice for services.
No, I should be sending you. I am going to send you some Lululemon gear for being part of the show. So hopefully they send you some nice stuff. I can see your wife in the background there who did a ripping review. That'll be on the air next week. I just listened to the end of that before we started recording.
Yeah, they were very thorough.
Yeah, very thorough. So nice to the Eskimos, I reckon. Viv Croker.
Yeah. We need to step up our game, I reckon. With
I know. I don't think we'll ever be able to review anything ever again after we hear this one. Anyway, mate, good to finish on a laugh.
Thanks for the chat, mate.